Welcome to Detroit. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass. You can drown them. And that's what we gotta be. That's who we have to be. Because that's our domain. That is our domain. Because we'll tread water as long as it takes to fucking bury you.
Takes the snap, turns, gives to Montgomery, right side, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions! Yes.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike. And as always, we're diving on in. Folks, everybody knows exactly what the Lions have in front of them this week. Everybody knows exactly the opponent they're getting ready to face. Everybody knows the magnitude, the importance that this game has for the team. It is an important game. It is a game that is going to carry a great deal of weight around the NFL in terms of opinion makers, in terms of the other NFL teams. This is a big game. It is a big deal. That is not lost on the Detroit Lions. But here's something I want to point out here. As with every game, every opponent that we get set to play, I always do my research prior to that game to give you guys the most in-depth analysis that I can provide to let you guys know what we could potentially be dealing with when we play that game. And the way I look at it is, with this particular game, there is something that is not being said by a lot of people about this game. And it's exactly like my thumbnail image says. I believe that this is the perfect time, the perfect moment, the perfect opportunity for the Detroit Lions, because I believe that the Philadelphia Eagles are the ideal opponent for this team. And there is a very specific set of reasons that I have as to why I think that. Now, I'm going to tell you something that's going to probably absolutely, think I've gone off the damn deep end and I'm cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and I've been drinking too much of the Kool-Aid. But when I take a look at the information that I have found, I don't think this game is going to be quite as tight or quite as, how should I say that it's going to come down to a kind of wire contest in this game. And the reason why I don't think that is because of the information that I found. I'm not saying at all that the Lions are going to blow out the Eagles. I don't think that's going to happen. But what I think is that the Lions are going to have more than a fair shot of having a solid victory against the Eagles. Now, obviously, that still means we have to show up, we have to execute, we have to play a really damn good football game. It's not like you just show up and you go through the motions and you just do that. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is, if the Lions play their style of game and they play it against the Eagles the way that the Eagles have been playing, there is a solid shot that the Eagles could get beat with the Lions winning a solid victory. And I'm thinking that this game might be very close in terms of the dynamic of how it was played with the Lions when they played against the Ravens. Because the Lions, they didn't blow out the Ravens, but they solidly, convincingly beat the Ravens, which threw everybody for a loop. And the reason why I believe the Lions are going to have a very similar outcome is because of information that is not only compiled over the entirety of the season, but also information that has happened over the last 2 weeks, and then just understanding how that all binds and plays in together. Let me just show you something that I found here. Everybody's been talking about the fact that when it comes to the Eagles, their biggest ability to win games right now has been their defense. everybody's talked about, the Vic Fangio defense and how that defense is just really, really hard to play against because they're so structurally sound. Now, I'm going to tell you this. I'm not an NFL coach, but I do understand football. And the one thing I understand about football is that analytics, statistics, and trends do matter. And the one thing I can tell you, when I've looked at the numbers, I've looked at the data, I've looked at how this Eagles defense has played over the last couple of weeks, it has not been as good as what everybody is pointing it out to be. But when you take a look at that from just the large-scale viewpoint of the entire season, it gets even more of less confident in that regard. Let me put some stats up on the screen here for you. If you take a look at the statistics of the Philadelphia Eagles defense, the Eagles have allowed 192 points, which ties 7th best in the league, right? They're also 14th in yards, tied 11th in yard per play, 16th in first downs given up. Their passing numbers given up look really damn good. But then as you start to get further and further on down the list, it does not look that good. Their rush defense is not particularly great. 17th in yards given up, 19th in average given up, 25th in terms of touchdowns given up. Their third down percentage is near the bottom of the league. And then their score drive percentage, below average. Turnover percentage, also pretty much below average, a little bit closer to average. But then the amount of turnovers, not good. Sacks that they've garnered is absolutely pitiful for that defensive front that they have. And their pressure percentage is just barely above average. So it's like, okay, here, let's think about this. You have a Philadelphia Eagles defense that has not given up a hell of a lot of points this year. But in all other manners of statistical numbers, it's not particularly good. It's average at best. Now, why do I bring that up? Well, think about this, folks. What are people talking about with the Lions defense? They're saying it's a good defense, but nobody's talking about the Lions defense the same way that they're talking about the Eagles defense, about it being just this elite machine that stops opponents dead in its tracks. Well, take a look at the Lions defensive numbers up to this point. You're going to get a real interesting education. The Lions, look at their numbers. They've given up 200 points. They're 8 points less than the Eagles. They're ranked 10th. They've got better yards given up. They're ranked 5th compared to the Eagles' 14th. They've got less in terms of yards per play. They're ranked better there. They're ranked better in terms of first downs given up. They're ranked better in terms of passing yards given up. They're ranked better in terms of rush yards given up, rushing average given up, rush touchdowns given up, third down percentage given up, scoring drive percentage given up, turnover percentage that they've garnered on their drives, more turnovers, more sacks by a large margin, and their pressure percentage is better. That to me is rather peculiar. Everybody talks about this Eagles defense like it's one of the best in the league. But nobody talked about the Lions defense like that. But yet statistically, the numbers prove it. The numbers show that this Lions defense is better than the Eagles defense. Think about that for half a second. So when I looked at those numbers, I'm like, that is really back-ass words. I'm like, I would not have thought that at all. But then I started going a little deeper. I looked at the teams that the Eagles have played. And when you take a look at it, the Eagles have not played a good team overall in over a month. The last 4 games that the Eagles have played, twice have been against the Giants, which is an ass team, the Vikings, who are inconsistent as hell, and then there's the Packers, who have a championship-level defense, but again, an inconsistent as hell offense. None of those teams are good overall. And like I said, with the Vikings and the Packers, they're very inconsistent with big question marks in key areas. And then think about it even further from this perspective, folks. when you take a look at the Eagles' last 4 games, you want to know what their point differential total has been over those last 4 games in terms of how many points their offense has scored versus how many points their defense has given up. It's a mere 10 points. 10 points! Everybody wants to talk about the Eagles being, the best team still in the NFC, preferential Super Bowl favorites. Obviously people are talking about the Rams and the Seahawks, the Lions, and things like that, but you've played against 4 really inconsistent or really bad teams, and you've only got a 10-point differential between how many you've scored versus how many the opponents you played against have scored? You want to know where the Lions have been over the last 4 games they played? Which, okay, yeah, you know what? They played 2 bad teams or inconsistent teams in the Commanders and the Vikings. But, think about this. Who did we play prior to that? Oh, that's right, the Bucks and the Chiefs. The Chiefs are still considered one of the best teams in the AFC. The Bucks are considered one of the better teams in the NFC. Both of them are considered playoff, teams. And you know what? You want to know where our point differential has been over the last month? 21 points. That's double what the Eagles have done. So, okay here. We've played better teams. We've got double the point differential in terms of where our offense is scoring versus where our defense is allowing points given up. And that's with an inconsistent offense for the last, 3 of those 4 games. And then on top of that, our defense statistically is better than the Eagles. I've already proven that. So I'm like, okay here, something about this just ain't making any damn sense. But then I delve deeper. I look at more things closely, and I start really peeling back the layers of this onion, and I really start seeing how the Lions can really, absolutely, really put a hampering on the Eagles. Because let's think about this. Not only is the Eagles' defense not better than the Lions, and it's actually giving off the appearance of a paper tiger, but you have to consider the teams that the Eagles have faced over the last month. Like I said, the Giants twice, the Vikings, and the Packers. Who are the quarterbacks when they played in those games? The 2 games against the Giants were Jackson Dart, Carson Wentz for the Eagles, and Jordan Love for the Packers. Carson Wentz is not a good quarterback, but yet Carson Wentz still threw over 300 yards on the Eagles. Granted, he also threw 2 interceptions, but that was also dealing with all the injuries that he had. Jordan Love is probably the best overall talent quarterback that the Eagles have played over the last month. But the quarterback that's actually performed the best in one singular game has been Jackson Dart. And that was the game when they actually beat the Eagles 34-17. Remember that? Giants beating the Eagles 34-17? But again, Jordan Love has been the best quarterback in terms of talent overall that the Eagles have played over the last month. So then I'm like, okay here, let's think about this. If Jordan Love is the best that they've played over the last month, where does our quarterback compare to Jordan Love? It ain't even close. Take a look at Jordan Love's numbers over the entire course of this season, right? Jordan Love has completed about 69% of his passes, almost 2,300 passing yards, 7.9 in average throw, 13 touchdowns for 4.5 touchdown percentage rate per throw, 3 interceptions for a 1.0 interception rate per throw, 103 pass rating with a 68.6 QBR. Not bad numbers at all. The touchdowns are particularly low, but the passer rating's pretty good, QBR's pretty good. So I'm like, okay here, where does Goff figure in all this? Goff absolutely spanks the ever-living hell out of Jordan Love. His completion percentage is 5 points higher at 74. The passing yards are pretty much on point. 22.35 to freaking Jordan Love's 22.47. So it's like, okay here, those are pretty equal. Goff's passing average is better at 8.2. He's got 20 touchdowns to Jordan Love's 13, a 7.3 touchdown percentage rate per throw to Jordan Love's 4.5. He's got the same amount of interceptions with 3, pretty much the same interception percentage rate per throw at 1.1, a significantly higher passer rating at 117.7, so that's literally 14 points higher, and the QBR is virtually the same too, it's 68.1. And I'm like, wait a minute here. Jordan Love had an absolutely terrible game against the Eagles, but yet the Eagles almost lost that game because they only won 10-7. Why do I bring this up? I bring this up because Love, like I said, struggled mightily against the Eagles defense. That should have done better against that Eagles defense, considering the numbers I just put out, even with the Packers having the injury shortages that they had. Because it's like, okay, for most of that game, they still had Romeo Doubs. They still had Luke Musgrave. They still had Josh Jacobs. They still had Jordan Love. So it's like, okay, they still had some pretty decent weapons. The Lions, however, are not going to have that much of any shortages offensively compared to the Packers. So far, the only two guys that we know for certain that are not playing in the game against the Eagles is Christian Mahogany, which we already knew about, and we just found out Sam Laporta's not playing, which that does hurt, but Brock Wright is more than capable of filling in for that role for at least a game. So, in comparison, the Lions' offense is vastly superior to what the Packers were bringing in. And then you have to think about this as well. What has been the Achilles heel of this freaking Eagles defense? It's been their run defense this year. Well, think about this, folks. When our running game gets going, that's when Goff really goes off. There have been times he's gone off without that running game, but it really is apparent when that run game gets going. And think about this. The two games where the Eagles lost were the games where the running game for those opponents just absolutely had their way. Think about this. The Giants showed that not only does the run game work very well, but it works extremely well against the Eagles in being able to allow the entire offense to benefit. And that's not just considering what Dart was able to do in that game. But imagine how it works with Jared Goff. We've already known that Jared Goff is the play-action king of the NFL. But when that run game gets going, it opens up everything for our offense. It opens up opportunities for Amon-Ra St. Brown. It opens up opportunities for J-Mo. With Sam Laporta out, it's going to open up opportunities for Brock Wright. It's also going to open up opportunities for Khalif Raymond and Isaac Tesla and Gibbs out of the backfield. And potentially Monty. So think about that, because when you take a look at the running game that the Lions have, it gets particularly interesting. Because in both games that the Eagles lost, which, funny enough, they lost those games back-to-back. But in both of the games that the Eagles lost, not only did the running game do well, which that was a big component of it, but it also allowed the quarterback to play well. And when the quarterback played well, with the running game playing well, both in the same unison, that was how they won the game. So the ability for the quarterback to play well with the running game going well allows teams to win against the Eagles. Well, in both of the games that the Eagles lost, that's exactly what happened. In the Broncos game, the Eagles gave up 130 yards rushing. And while Bo Nix didn't have the greatest game ever, that was the third best passer rating that a quarterback has had against the Eagles defense all season. So it was still a top 3 performance against that Eagles defense. Then you think about the game against the Giants, where the Giants freaking put up 34 points on the Eagles. You want to know what happened in that game? The Giants put up 172 yards total rushing on them, which is the most they've given up all season. And on top of that, Jackson Dart had the best passer rating against the Eagles defense all season. I think he had 100.5 or something like that. That's still the best passer rating that any quarterback has had against the Eagles defense this year. And that was a huge reason why the lowly Giants of all teams trounced the Eagles in that game 34-17. So when you then take all that information, then put it into the fact of what the Lions have in their rushing attack with Gibbs and Monty. Gibbs just had a monster game against the Commanders rushing for nearly almost 150 yards. And we still know Monty's a threat all the damn way, because he had, 70 plus yards in that game too? So we know that the Lions' rushing attack is going to make that Eagles defense have to play them very much differently than what they would normally play other people. Because it means no longer can they just tee off on Goff and the quarterback. They have to make sure that they can't let Gibbs and Monty get loose. Because if they do, it's going to allow everything else to get loose. But then you have to think about it from this perspective. Gibbs, I think, is going to have another great game against the Eagles. And a lot of people are like, what are you talking about, David? Here's the reason why I think this. Commanders, obviously you know their defense ain't good. But over the course of the season, you want to know where the Commanders' average per rush is right now? It's at 4.6. That's not good. Well, go back to what I was talking about with the stats for the Eagles defense. You want to know where their average per rush is? It's at 4.4. It's virtually the exact same damn thing. In fact, the Eagles are tied 20th in the NFL in terms of rush average per run. You want to know where the Commanders are at? They're tied 22nd. I mean, there's no difference. So that tells me that the Eagles defense can not only be ran on, but it can be ran on with good efficiency. And if that happens, that then means you can complete the circle for the Lions offense to where Goff is going to get the play action game going, which is going to open up the main passing game, and then you're going to have this reverberating circle of run, pass, play action, run, pass, play action, just over and over and over and over again. And here's the thing, here's what really sells it for me. If the Lions can use the game plan that Morton comes up with and the scheme that he comes up with, much like how they did against the Commanders, and I'm not saying that in the same kind of, type of game plan, but the in-depth of how in-depth it was, how perfectly, strategized it was, and then you put that in Dan Campbell's hands as far as calling the plays and going with the flow of the game and knowing how to use the players to the best of their capability. That's why I'm saying the Lions could actually have a solid victory over the Eagles. That's why I'm saying I don't know or I don't think that this game is going to be nearly as tight as what people are thinking. And I mean tight by the sense of like it's just back and forth the whole way. Nobody can gain control until the last damn minute. I truly think that this game is going to mimic very closely to the feel that the Lions had when they played against the Ravens. Because from start to finish, even though the Lions only won that game 38-30, it never seemed like for a moment the Lions were not in control of that game. I think something very similar is about to happen Sunday night when we play against the Eagles. And the reason why is because the Eagles' defense is not as good as what people are advertising it as. Statistically, it's just not. And if we get our run game going, that's going to open up the play action game. It's going to open up the ability to us to throw the ball normally. And then once our offense is rolling, you take a look at the defensive numbers that I already put out there. Our defense can roll with just about anybody. And the Eagles' offense right now is extremely inconsistent. That's why I'm talking. This plays one after another. It's a domino effect. It literally is. But you do with that information what you will. So, I'm going to end this episode and say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage you all to watch the next episode. I also encourage you all to do this. If you enjoyed the content and you're not yet subscribed, I hope to gain your subscription. But if you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and you just not had yet a chance to do so while watching this episode, please, by all means, make sure you hit that bell notification icon so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out and you'll get that notification so you can come right back. I hope you all are doing well and got something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless, my friends. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.